physical body, but we are reaching a sort of a point where we're beating our head against the wall if we don't bring in some of this understanding of the etheric and the energy body. For example, I watched a video on how cancer cells are destroyed by certain sound frequencies. Yeah. So this sort of thing. Science is looking for the God principle. Greg Braden is a scientist who works on this cusp between science and spirituality. And I was watching, there's a wonderful TV channel called Gaia.com online that you can subscribe to that has all sorts of films and videos and stuff right on this cusp of spirituality and science. I was watching some of his work, and he was saying when they plot the Earth's magnetic field and they look at how it has changed, because it cycles, the magnetic field, and they look at the macro cycles over the course of human history, and they look at the way this magnetic field oscillates, and then they plot over at different events in history, and they found a strong correlation, and they found that when the magnetic field is weak, there's a lot of conflict in civilization. When it is stronger, there is more times of peace. We're in a time now where the magnetic field is very weak. And what they have said, in the past, the time of conflict has always been the stepping stone to great change. So before the Renaissance, there came the Dark Ages. And maybe we're in the end, hopefully the end of a dark age. Maybe they'll look back now and say, oh yeah, those were dark times, but look where they moved to. Look at the opportunity there was to move to times that are a golden age, that are a time of light. And we have to hold that vision, because energy follows thought, and the more people that hold a negative view, the more likely it is to be. In Bruce Lipton's work, if you've read any of his work on what they call epigenetics, he looks at the biology of belief. So he's a geneticist, a scientist, who looks at the effect of emotions and increasingly the electromagnetic radiation from the heart on the cells in the body. And he has done a lot of his book. If you're interested in this, read his book, The Biology of Belief. And he said that our DNA responds to our thought environment. So the electromagnetic radiation coming out from your heart chakra affects every single cell in your body and affects the DNA, and it affects the expression of the genes. So you may have some really negative genes in there, some family history genes for some horrible illnesses, but if those genes are not in a negative heart environment, they will not express. And when the heart energy is positive and loving and open and giving, the genetic expression, it tends to be positive for health, and the genes that are negative for health tend to be switched off. So this is where we're not governed by our genetics. We are more governed by our thought environment. Our DNA zipping and unzipping, when we form new proteins in the body, the messenger RNA unzips and codes a new protein and then zips up and forms those new proteins. And given that just pretty well everything in our body is formed from these proteins, this is an important process. And this process of zipping and unzipping is affected by the water environment that the cells are found in, and the medium or the environment. And now we know, if we look at, have you read of Emoto's work on the power of emotions to affect water? So for those who haven't, Japanese scientists found that when people, say you have a jar of water, and people send loving, healing, positive, compassionate thoughts to that jar of water, when he freezes that water, it has beautiful crystals, perfectly formed, like snow crystals. Now when he takes the same water and people send anger and negative energy and conflict and frustration to this water, it forms these haphazard, no uniformity and not beautifully formed crystals. Now, so he's saying that the emotions have an effect on water. Your body is 70% water, and our planet is 70% water. So the collective emotional energy of humanity is affecting your water environment in your body, which is 70% water, which is affecting every cell's ability to reproduce proteins in your body. So the water environment in your body is determining the proteins in your body, your physicalness. And so this is where we start to understand the power of the heart energy to transform, to heal, and the responsibility for our thoughts. And I'm going to talk about our responsibility a bit more here. Nassim Haramein is a scientist whose work, he's a genius. He's following on a lot of Einstein's work, and when you watch his videos or listen to his work, you've got to really concentrate, because I can just barely keep up with him. He's got such an incredible mind. But you watch it over a few times and finally it sinks in, and some of his concepts are way beyond what I can comprehend. But he's done a lot of work on entanglement. And in quantum physics says that because of this energy that pervades through all of us, we find examples of something called entanglement. So for example, if they have a crystal in one room and a crystal, the same type of crystal, in another room in another city, when they hit this crystal and they measure the other crystal, it shows signs of the trauma of the first crystal, saying that these two crystals are, through time and space, entangled. And he goes so far as to say that if we could measure all the particles in the universe at the same time, we would find they are all entangled. And this entanglement helps to explain a lot of the concept and theosophy of karma. Souls over lifetimes of dramas together become very entangled, so that when you come into incarnation, you may have particular entanglements to work through with particular other souls that you would call karma from previous lives. That's part of your soul's remit. Okay, so this idea that we are all entangled on some level, and maybe entangled more with others because of what's gone on, starts to really expand your mind. What I want to move to now is, hopefully I've convinced you somewhat at least, that we must hold hope, why there is reason to hope, and now I'm going to talk about what we can do. And amongst this, there's some more of this coming in, but this is the practical. Okay, you've convinced me. I need to really lift my game and hold this space for the good of humanity, not just for my own personal life, but as an altruistic act of service to humanity. I want to read quite a long passage, but it's a beautiful passage from Serving Humanity, one of the Alice Bailey books. In the life of every disciple, particularly of those who face certain great expansions of consciousness, a point of crisis will come about. In that point of crisis, decisions are voluntarily or involuntarily made. Having made them, the disciple then stands at a point of tension, with the decision behind him and the next step to be taken becoming clearer to his mental perception and influencing this attitude of the future. When the work is done in the period of tension, then there comes what we might call a point of emergence. This is both an emergence from and also an emergence into a field of experience. Shirk not these crises, hard and difficult though they may appear to be. Difficult they are. Forget not that the habit of confronting crises is a long-established one within the consciousness of humanity. They are only the points of examination as to strength, purpose, purity and motive, and the intent of the soul. They evoke confidence when surmounted and produce greatly expanded vision. They foster compassion and understanding, for the pain and inner conflict they have engendered is never forgotten, for they draw upon the resources of the heart. They release the light of wisdom within the field of knowledge, and the world is thereby enriched. So every time you hit a point of crisis and you move through that point of crisis into some positive action that enhances the evolution of your soul and enhances the light within your being, you do the same for humanity. So every difficulty that you face head on and move through, you do for the good of all. And this can help. It helps us to realise that our very lives are acts of service. What can we do? The first thing, meditate regularly. Okay? To meditate is to spend time in the vibrational energy of your soul. And when I say soul, I mean the upper triangle in Theosophy, the higher mind, the Atma and the body. Your soul is in constant meditation, and when you, the personality, just withdraw from the world and go quietly into meditation, you align with the vibration of your soul. And in this time, we set aside the power of the ego mind, the personality mind, the astrally focused desire mind, if you like, and the usual thoughts, and allow the intuitive wisdom of the soul a chance to be heard. So there's a quietness, a quietening down of the whole being. Meditation allows the light of understanding to grow and glow in us. It brings us in touch and enables us to live within the stream of consciousness that emanates from this higher triad, from the higher mind, Atma and body. It disciplines the lower mind and the emotional nature. It enables us to step back from the ego, about the drama of life. We step back from it. It gives us that capacity. It's a powerful force for integration and coordination of the personality vehicle, probably one of the most powerful forces for integrating and coordinating your personality vehicle, so that that vehicle becomes an effective vehicle for soul expression. Your soul can't come through muddled, scattered, unintegrated, uncoordinated energy of the physical, of the lower emotional body, of the lower mind. It's ineffective. It gets all. Once that is clear, the antakarana is clear and true, the soul has a real chance to make a difference. And this is those initiations, those awakenings of the heart that happen. Meditation brings us into an emergence of our own greater understanding of truth. So at any given moment in time, we understand. I don't think we can ever say we understand the full truth. We understand the truth we're capable of understanding in that moment of time, and that evolves. We become capable of understanding more and more truth toward perhaps one day understanding truth. We shine the light of consciousness into the unconscious within us that needs healing, and it brings it into the light of day that we can either run from in fear or we can embrace in love. And that's our choice. That's our choice. And if we run from it in fear, it just comes back double next time round. And if we face it in love, we move through up to higher levels of consciousness, and then we can help others do the same. It enables us to hold our equanimity in calm and stressful times. It's like a retreat, a sanctuary, a place to go when life gets too difficult, a place to recharge and reconnect to that inner peace that sustains us. Enables us to guard the doors of thought and detach from the old conditioned thoughts of our mind, which when we detach from them, we realise that many of the thoughts in our mind, A, are the same thoughts day in, day out, B, are not our own, they're often ones we picked up along the way, and C, don't serve us anymore. So, okay, once you see that, you just don't give attention to the ones that don't serve you anymore. And what happens is A, they calm down, B, they lose their power, and C, you start getting some real intuitive gems from the intuitive part of you. And that's when it starts getting really magical. Okay, so meditation opens us to self-affirming thoughts that reflect our essential nature, our true nature, that we are truth, beauty and goodness. So that flowering and opening of the heart, the opening to seeing others as souls who have, bandaged or unbandaged eyes, who are conscious or not. So that brings in compassion and forgiveness and tolerance. It cultivates the ability to detach from your surrounding conditions, and you know that in the emotional world of our relationships and our everyday life, often when it all gets too much, if you can just step out for a while and take time out, you come back to it with greater insight. And that's what meditation does. It gives you that in your mind. Let reality govern my every thought and truth be the master of my life. Dwell cold in Alice Bailey's writing. Course in Miracles says we open to the understanding of the difference between our perception of a situation and the truth of a situation, because our perception is through our particular glasses, the lens of our particular unconscious conditioning. Meditation develops discrimination and discernment, so that in the world we're more able to and trust our inner guidance on what is good and true. And sometimes we know someone's saying something, but there's something incongruent about what they're saying or doing, and we might not know what it is, but we get a gut feel that something's not right here, and we start to trust and listen to those sort of messages. The second thing we can do is come together in united group work. So you've given up your Sunday afternoon to come here. You are holding the space for each other. By focusing and concentrating on what I am saying, you are helping everyone in this room to understand. Your minds are united at this point, and it has it's not just an additive effect, it has more like a multiplying effect. It helps others. Energy spent on the spiritual plane has a much greater effect than energy spent on the physical plane. And many people don't realise this. A person who can move energy on the spiritual plane can counteract numerous energies of selfishness on the physical plane. Because, and Blavatsky writes about this in The Secret Doctrine, because so much energy is required to create a selfish thought and to hold a selfish thought, it's a very dense vibration. You think how draining anger is. It's exhausting to hold an angry thought, to hold a negative energy. An unselfish thought form, a pure thought form that originates from the heart, is of much lighter vibration and much easier to move and hold. And this is why when we hold these type of thoughts, we feel lighter, full of light. For this reason, it only takes a few working on the higher planes to protect the world and change the energy and vibration of the mental atmosphere of the many, holding more negative, fearful thoughts. And this comes back to why we must hold hope. It only takes a few light workers to undo and to reverse and change those negative energies of fear and doubt that pervade through the world. And many, many people work in this way, consciously. It's called the steady impact of right thought on the human consciousness by trained groups of thinkers. And you can be involved in this work if you want to be. What I'm going to ask at the end, if you want me to send you a handout of a list of group meditations and opportunity for world service, that I've come across, I'll email it to you. And it's got all sorts of things. From the Lucius Trust does, you can become involved in triangles meditations, where you hook up with 2 other people in different parts of the world. And every day, as a visualization, you form the energy of that triangle. And the idea is that the lower energies of the lower vehicles are quaternary, they're squares. So in the astral plane that surrounds the earth, much of that negative energy is in squares, if you like. So by connecting up in triangles, which is the higher energy of the soul, of the higher triad, you are cutting through or changing that energy. So there's people, and this has been going on, this was initiated after the war, I think it began in 45, and people from then till now have been involved in triangles, and now it's even easier because you can hook up with people via the internet, and you don't have to particularly know those people. You just have an intention that every day you do a little visualization where you visualize your triangle, and you connect with those people, and you sound the great invocation in that connection. And there's a weekly webinar that's broadcast from New York that you can join in a talk in a group meditation that usually about 130 people worldwide join. And you feel part of a community, and you know that there are others who think like you do and have the same heartfelt desire to make a difference in this way. And it's an act of service. I'm in about 4 different triangles. I just add it to my meditation each day. It only takes a few minutes. But it's something I can do. I have 4 kids. I want to change the world they grow up in. And that's something I can do in my own home at any time of the day. So there's lots of things like that. There's a World Goodwill meditation at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday. There's people who every time there's a world conference where they're making decisions on the sustainable development goals, on world decisions, they send light and love energy to all of the delegates in that conference, asking that it be for the highest good of all of mankind. And they start sending energy to the conference days before, throughout the conference, and days afterwards. So there's light workers working in these ways, and if you're interested, there's loads of opportunities. So you can give me your email address if you want that, and I can send that to you. The third thing we can do, and this is really important, is to live harmlessly. Harmlessness is the number one thing that purifies the energy centers or chakras in your body. So you can do all the yoga and meditation and eat all of the green foods and do all of the healthy things and work on all your past stuff and your unconscious stuff and all of these things that help to purify the centers and open, as the heart opens, then many people the throat is opening. For some people the third eye is opening, and there are some who the crown is opening. But the thing that purifies your energies quicker than anything and is the most powerful is to live harmlessly. And this is harmlessness. It cleanses and purifies your whole etheric body. It will keep you healthy physically. And harmlessness, this is in speech, thought and action. So it's in thought. If a harmless thought passes through your mind, you don't give it energy, it passes through like just a movement, then gone. It's when you give thoughts energy that they build, and they manifest. If you knew that all your thoughts that you give a lot of energy to come into manifestation in some form, you would be very careful about your thought environment, about what you give attention to. Harmlessness is an indication of the heart opening and the throat center. The throat center is about truthful communication, and when it aligns with the heart center, we get people who are able to speak with authenticity and integrity. We can see when they speak, we can feel on every fibre of their being that they walk, they talk, that they're integral, and we sense truth. And these centres are opening. It's why we have so many diseases of the heart and issues to do with this area of the body. Why so many people have so much tension here in their neck, all around here. Heart and throat opening. In yoga, I mostly deal with people with heart and throat opening problems in their physical body, if you like. It's the emergence of thinking in the heart, harmlessness. Intention comes from your heart chakra. Okay, action obviously is how you behave in daily life. So the most potent force in the world today is harmlessness, that positive attitude of mind that thinks no evil. This is Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. In a treatise on white magic, study your daily conduct and words and thoughts so as to make them utterly harmless. Study your emotional effect on others so that by no mood, no depression, no emotional reaction can you harm another. A very tall order. That's okay. That's all right now. Okay, the last point, the last thing we can do is attune to and follow our soul's path. And you're like, oh, well, how do I do that? And I could talk for hours on how you do that. That is to be found by going within, by what you're drawn to, by coming to talks like this, by the books that you read, by going inward in meditation and asking. Ask masters, ask divas, ask for help, ask your soul, speak to your soul. And this means that we make time for study and contemplation, time to just be. We're not doing and busy, time where we actually are with ourselves happily. And then you find your own unique way to contribute to the greater good in the world, your own way to make a difference in troubled times. Signs that you have found your way or are finding your way, I'll just go through quickly. We feel passionate and inspired and full of energy when we're doing what we're here to do. Time stands still when we're engaged in this way of being. We lose, it's like, oh, you forget to eat, you forget, you're so infused with energy. Because when you're doing your soul's work, the soul pours energy into the etheric body. And it's almost like you don't need normal energy from food metabolism, if you like. We feel a sense of purpose and rightness, even if our rational mind or others question what we're doing. We know this is what we're meant to do, and we know it's right, even if we can't explain why. We feel a powerful mixture of excitement and fear, as if we stand poised between the two. And it's often a testing ground where we're asked to step into the excitement, the forward, rather than to the fear. We don't give in to the fear. Because the fear arises from the ego that feels threatened by this increasing soul contact. We know we are helped by energies and forces beyond our small individual self. You know that when you're doing this, you're opening up to something more. Okay? When I teach yoga, when I do talks like this, a lot of the time I just open up and trust, and it comes through. I write the notes, yeah, and I've read the books, yeah, sure, but what comes through, I get enormous help. It's not of me, it's through me. And you come to trust on an intuitive level that it just will be so. I could have the flu and stand up here and talk. Yeah, I'll feel rough afterwards because the energy flow, but I can still do it because something helps. And you'll know, if you've ever stepped into this energy, you'll know what that feels like. An incredible amount of energy pours through you. So we learn to live a soul-inspired life so that your light shines, and as it does, it inspires others to find the way to the light of their soul. So we become a ripple in the pond. And the quote that sustains me, and I'm going to finish on this one, is a quote from A Course in Miracles, and it says, God himself is incomplete without you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got to go. Oh. It's all right. I can go just a few minutes after. But if there are some questions, I'm happy. Yeah, tell me.
Well, fascinating talk, Teresa. Thank you very much indeed. It was interesting what you were talking about with the Maharishi Effect, and for people who don't understand what it is, it shows how an incredibly small number of people can have a hugely disproportionate effect. Yeah. So it's reckoned to be the square root of 1% of any given population locally and nationally. So in a town of 20,000 people, it's 4.5 people. In the population of the world of 7.2 billion, It's about 8,500 people.
That's right.
That's all it is. And they have this incredible disproportionate effect.
Yes.
That's all I wanted to say.
No, that is true. It seems to, I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but the effect of so if we could get 8,000 people in the world working on the higher planes, holding the light, that's enough to shift us. That's all that's required. Do you see what I mean? To counteract all that negativity. Yeah, it's powerful, very powerful. And the beauty is that many people are kind of being called to all of this and want to do this, even if they don't understand any of the teachings of the occult writings or the esoteric writings. That's not necessary to open the heart. Okay, it helps. I think it helps to understand, but it's not absolutely necessary. Okay. Any other questions?